Alright, so we are going to get started on this project. I have my H hook, or my 5mm hook, and I just have a little bit of yarn here. This is 100% cotton yarn, worsted weight number 4, and this was in my stash busting bin for January. So just a little bit, and I was like, what could I do with this? And I thought of, why not make a little facial scrubby, or I could even use it to wash dishes with. It's just going to be a little square, and I actually really like them. I think it's a nice alternative for me for instead of exfoliating. I actually, you know, probably TMI, but I cannot use exfoliating products on my face. It's just too harsh for them. But this gives it a little bit of, you know, just enough roughness to get, you know, the extra dead skin off, and it works really well for me. And so, and you can wash these and use these over again. So they're really practical. And so, enough rambling. I tend to do that. I apologize. Let's get right into it. So we are going to do this in Tunisian, and we're going to start off with chaining 14. So I've already made 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I have my 14 chains, so you can see it's like a small project. And what we're going to do is we're going to work on the back bump of our chain and just pull up loops. And as you can see, I have a regular sized hook. I do not need to use a Tunisian hook. So as long as you have a straight hook like this, you're good to go. And sometimes if you're worried about the loops coming off, you can put a rubber band on the end, but I don't think that's going to be a problem at all, so I didn't even bother with that today. So we are going to work in our back bump, pulling up all of our loops, and your first loop on your hook will count. So you'll have a total of 14 loops on your hook. And I love to use Tunisian crochet with making things like this, either little, you know, washcloths or dishcloths. I just find that it's a really practical stitch. They hold up wash after wash. I've made some dishcloths with just regular regular crochet, and I love regular crochet, but I just find if you're actually going to use your washcloths, which I do, I love using them. I find them to be economical, and you know, hopefully it's saving the environment. But when you wash them over and over again, sometimes I feel like because crochet stitches sometimes are a little bit looser, they start to, you know, sag and fall apart a little bit. I've actually had some completely fall apart just from repeated washing. So I find the Tunisian ones just hold up better. You know, that's my personal preference. I guess you could make a washcloth all in single crochet, but that is my least favorite stitch, so I'm not going to do that. So anyway, I've got my 14 loops on my hook, and now we're going to work these off. So how to work these off is you just pull through the first loop, and then we're going to pull through 2 for the remainder of the stitches here. And this pattern is for people that are familiar with Tunisian. I don't think I have a video up yet on the basics of Tunisian, and I probably should do that. So I apologize if you're brand new to this. Maybe I'm going a little too quickly for you. But this is for people that, you know, have some basic knowledge with it. But it's not too hard. If you can crochet, you can do Tunisian crochet. Alright, so we have worked off all of our loops. And for our first row, we're going to work Tunisian purl stitch. So to do that, you're going to put your yarn in front of you and then insert in this bar right here. So you won't insert, a lot of patterns will say insert in the second bar. I usually don't even count this as a stitch. I mean, you count it, but when you're working, like, it's definitely, I've never worked a stitch where you're working here, so I find that to be confusing. So to me, this is the first bar. So we are going to insert our hook, put your yarn in front for the purl stitch, and insert your hook in that first bar. And we're going to work Tunisian purl all the way across. And for this stitch, I usually use my thumb to kind of help push it on there. It just makes it easier for me, but you know, you can figure out how it's easiest for you. So we are going to work in Tunisian purl all the way across until we get to our last stitch, and then I'll show you what we're going to do in the last stitch. And I just thought if you don't have cotton yarn, you could also, if you just have a bunch of scrap yarns, you could make a bunch of these little squares and then actually make a little afghan out of them if you wanted to. Make a nice scrapgan. I love some of those scrappy blankets that people have made. Alright, so now we have come to our last stitch right here. So in this last stitch we are going to work a Tunisian knit stitch, and I usually do that with all of my Tunisian projects. I just find that it just creates a really nice clean edge, so that's just my personal preference. So we are going to work the Tunisian knit. When you look at this stitch here, it looks like a little chain actually. So you're going to insert the hook just like if you were working in a chain, and then you're going to pull up your stitch like that. So now we have worked our second row, because when you worked off this is the first row, the setup row, and now we're working the second row. So we're going to do the same thing with the return pass, because with Tunisian it's always 2 steps. So you're going to put your loops on your hook first, and then you have to work off your loops. So that's called the return pass. So we're going to yarn over, pull through the first loop, and then for the rest of the loops you're going to pull through 2. So yarn over and just pull through 2 loops. Okay, so now we have completed 2 rows, and a nice thing with Tunisian is it's really easy to count your rows. So if you turn it on its side, you can see it looks like a top if you're working like regular crochet stitches right here. So 2 stitches, and then it'll look the same on the other side. Once we got a couple more rows in, you'll be able to really count these stitches easily on the other side as well. Alright, so now we are going to, let me get a little bit more yarn. That's kind of the thing when you're working with those little balls, they kind of get annoying sometimes. Alright, so the first stitch, this first bar, we're going to work a purl stitch. And the edges are all going to be in purl stitches, and I find that helps with curling, because Tunisian is notorious for curling, you know, it doesn't want to lay flat. But I just find if you just do a little bit of purl stitches on the edges, especially if you're making a blanket, you know, a couple rows, it really helps to combat the curling. Alright, so now we're going to do something fun. It's going to be simple, but just give it a little bit of, jazz it up a little bit. You could just do Tunisian simple, but we're going to do like a cross stitch. So we are going to skip this next bar right here, and we're going to work in this guy right here. And as you can see, there's our little purls, just like if you were working in knitting. So I'm skipping this one, and I'm going to pull up a loop in Tunisian simple stitch. Very, very simple. So now we're going to go back into the bar that we skipped, and we'll do the same thing. Just work Tunisian simple stitch and pull up a loop. And it just gives it a little bit of fun there, and also nice for scrubbing. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing, skip the next bar, pull up a stitch in the next, and then we're going to go back into the one that we skipped, and we're working all Tunisian simple stitch, just skipping one and then working the stitch and then going back and working in the one that we skipped. So we are at our last 4 stitches, so we're going to skip one, alright, so now we are at our last 2. So the last 2, this second to the last one, we're working a purl stitch. So we're going to put the yarn in front, work our Tunisian purl, and then our last stitch here, we're working the Tunisian knit stitch. So again, you just need to find where it looks like a chain, and then you'll insert your hook right in the middle, and then pull up your loop. So now we have our loops again, and we're just going to work those guys off. And now we have worked 3 rows. So I will work another one. We're going to work either 12 or 14, probably 14 rows. So we're going to work 12, and then I will show you how to do the last two. But this is row 4, so we're going to do the same thing with working a purl stitch right in that first stitch, and then we're going to do the cross stitch again. So you're skipping that first bar, pulling it up in Tunisian simple, and then going back in the one you skipped. And then as you keep going in the pattern, then you'll see, you know, just it looks cool, I think. I mean, you could just do the Tunisian simple if you want to, but you know, I like to jazz it up a little bit, and it just gives good practice with, you know, trying out some different stitches in Tunisian. Whoops. There we go. Come on now. Alright, so we're at our last two. So we're going to do the purl stitch. And then the knit stitch at the end. Hopefully I was staying in frame. I wasn't really paying attention. I was looking below the camera so that I can see the stitches, and I'm not sure if I was in frame. So we'll work one more row, and I apologize for that. That is terrible. You're trying to see what I'm doing and I'm not helping you out at all. So I'm just working off these stitches. So we'll do row 5, and I will make sure that I stay in the frame here. So we can see here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, very simple to count. And then you'll be able to see here, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're going to work row 5, so it's purl stitch for the first. And we're doing the cross stitch, so you skip the next bar right there, and then work in the next one in Tunisian simple. And then go back and work in the one that you skipped, and we'll keep doing that all the way across. So this is a very quick project. I mean, you could probably do this in a half an hour if you're pretty skilled at Tunisian, maybe even quicker. And then you have a nice little scrubby, and then the second to the last stitch you work your Tunisian purl. And I've used these to wash dishes. We just moved, but our old house we actually did not have a dishwasher. It was horrible. And I have small hands, so I actually made quite a few of things like this to wash dishes with, and it was great because washing with sponges I think is kind of gross. And with these, you know, you can wash them. I actually had like a stack. I had a little basket and a stack of things like this next to my sink, and then I could just use it, and then when it was dirty I just threw it in the wash and washed it, and then, you know, reused it again. So to me, I thought it was a little bit more sanitary than, you know, keeping a gross sponge. Or even those like scrubby things that you can buy in the store. I don't know. To me, I'm thinking like that could harbor germs as well. I'm not a germaphobe, but because we didn't have a dishwasher, and you know, dishwashers can kill like anything you missed, but we didn't have one, so I wanted to make sure those dishes were like super clean. Alright, so they're gonna work off these loops. Again, TMI, but yes, you can wash these or use these to wash dishes if you have small hands, or maybe you just prefer, you know, something smaller. So many uses. Okay, so I'm going to keep going in this pattern, and you will work 12 rows, but the same thing that we've been doing with the purl stitch here, and then the cross stitches, and then to your second to the last, your purl, and then your knit stitch on the end. And then I will meet you back here. Okay, so instead of working 12 rows, I've worked 10 because I think 12 is going to be too many. So we are going to get ready to finish this guy up. So what we're going to do for this row is we're going to work completely in Tunisian purl stitch. So our yarn's in front. And we're just going to continue to work in Tunisian purl all the way across. almost out of yarn, so this worked out really well. Maybe I'll just have enough for stitch markers. Scraps of yarn always work out great for stitch markers. Okay, so I'm at my second to my last stitch. In my last stitch, I'm going to work my Tunisian knit stitch right there. So you can see real clearly here that it looks like a little chain there, just popping that guy in there. So pull through the one loop and then we'll pull through the two. And then we're going to work off our loops and our project will be finished. Okay, so we finished row 11, just working Tunisian purl across and then working our knit stitch in the last, our Tunisian knit stitch. So now we're going to work these guys off. I want this end to, match this end as best as I can. So I'm not going to work another row of Tunisian purl because I think it's going to just make it a little bit too wide at the top. So we're just going to work these guys off. So to do that, you're going to have your yarn over in front of you and you're going to insert your hook in Tunisian purl, wrap your yarn around, and we're just slip stitching that basically to work those guys off. So if you just think of it as a slip stitch, and you're just holding your yarn, positioning it differently instead of having it like that. Now if you were working a Tunisian purl, or not Tunisian purl, or Tunisian simple stitch, if you're working those off, then you would just insert your hook like that. But we want to keep with the pattern because we want the purls on the end. So we are going to work the Tunisian purl stitches all the way across, and then the last stitch will be a Tunisian knit stitch. So we are going to, sorry for the little noise in the back. My kids are home from school and it sounds like someone's causing a ruckus, so I'm not sure what's going on there. I'll have to, I have a middle schooler, so you know how it can be. Middle school's rough. Not just for the middle schooler, rough for the parents too. My final middle schooler, so I will be happy to, not that I want to wish their childhood away, but I don't enjoy middle school. It is not fun years. Alright, so we are almost done here. And so our last stitch we are going to keep with our stitch pattern, so we are going to work that guy off in Tunisian knit. So looks like a little chain stitch there. Pop your hook right in the center of that and just work that guy off. So now we have completed our little square, and I will probably block this a little bit. It's okay that it's not laying flat, but another reason is if I want to use this on my face, this guy smells a little bit. It's been sitting a while, not that it's moldy or anything like that, but when things have been sitting in storage for a while, they just don't smell that nice. So before I scrub this on my face, I want to clean her a little bit. Alright, so, and then after that we'll just chuck her in the wash and, wash and dry it. And we have finished that off, so I will weave in my ends. But there is my little scrubby. So I hope you enjoyed this project, and thank you so much for watching.